Hello everybody, hope you're doing fantastically well. It's Connor here, and yes, we are back with another One Leeds video. Leeds United 2, West Ham United 2, an actual prediction that Connor got right, believe it or not. Check the debrief for that evidence. Yes, I did predict a draw. I thought it would be a 1-1, but I thought it would be a war of attrition in this game. I thought it was going to be a very difficult one for Leeds, even though West Ham United have lost, I believe it's 5 games on the bounce, so they haven't won in 5. It was always going to be a tough one for Leeds, I thought, even from set piece, it was going to be difficult with West Ham. They do have threats, like we saw for the penalty that was given away in Jared Bowen. Declan Rice is still a top operator at Premier League level, of course. And you do feel that with players like Lucas Paqueta in the middle, they're always going to have a little bit of sturdiness as well against this Leeds United side, because I'm not sure we have the quality going forward and the quality in the press to really cause them some serious issues. However, I did think Leeds created moments of chaos for West Ham United, which was a massive positive. I thought for 20 minutes we were very, very good, but the old problems started to reoccur again, which really doesn't surprise me. I think I'm just growing a little bit frustrated with the lack of possession that Leeds have in football games. I think with possession, you are able to generate control. You're able to almost break down the opposition and obviously build from the back. And when you build from the back, it's going to generate more opportunities for Leeds United. I just feel that's completely logistical. Last night, once again, you saw Mark Rocker and Tyler Adams passing the ball back way too frequently. I thought Adams was brilliant. I think Rocker's got the highest percentage of passes played forward in the Premier League at the minute. And you just seen in the last couple of games that maybe he's not seen as many options up the field or quality passes that he can distribute to. I know we've moved to a 4-3-3, but for me, it doesn't seem an expansive 4-3-3, and naturally that's going to be how it works. It's going to be a narrow 4-3-3. It's going to still be compact, narrow, so we can uphold, I should say, Jesse's principles. But it does feel like someone like Mark Rocker is really restricted by the system when it comes to his passing, because I believe he's got a lovely distribution when it comes to that left foot. So that's definitely something to consider. It would be nice to see us play a little bit more expansively, but I know last night it did seem that we changed a little bit in possession to a 4-2-3-1 in the second half. A lot of it seemed to mould into a 4-2-2 as well. So Leeds were definitely fluid when it came to tactical flexibility, which was good to see. I think it's difficult to look at this Leeds side and find a lot of confidence at the minute, because I was with Lod last night and I was saying that when Leeds went 1-0 up, I said we're at our most vulnerable now. And, I was asked the question, do you feel confident? And no, I wasn't. I knew we'd concede. I knew we'd concede probably 2 goals, because that's what Leeds do. We can't seem to manage a game. That's a problem. That's a systematic problem. That's a tactical problem. I still think the worst teams that you've seen in the Premier League, some of them have been able to defend even if they don't have the quality on the field. So I don't naturally buy the whole argument of, well, it's just because we're absolutely diabolical in every defensive compartment. I do think there is ways to adjust to being poor at the back. I do think that. I do think there's tactical ways of doing that. I'm not going to come in on here and profess to know exactly what tactical nuance is going to help Leeds in that respect, but there are ways. We've seen very, very poor sides, poorer defences in Leeds United cope in the Premier League with a way more defensive structure. I do understand that takes away from your attack, because there's normally a balance, isn't there? It's quite hard to find a balance. Normally you're a very attacking team like we saw under Bielsa and score loads of goals but concede loads of goals, or you are a team who defends extremely well and doesn't score that many goals. However, it would feel very nice at this moment in time if we were able to churn out some 1-0 victories. It really would. So yeah, conceded the most chances in the Premier League this season, and we're top when it comes to playing the least amount of football in the Premier League this season, which essentially means that Leeds are just not having any possession whatsoever, which, as I've said, I think is massively problematic when it comes to Leeds building up the pitch and really being able to grind the opposition down. And you remember that under Bielsa, we were so possession-based, oppositions would really struggle to deal with Leeds. Leeds would keep the ball until gaps were provided. We would find those gaps and we would exploit that more often than not. I understand that the Bielsa system came to a grinding halt toward the end, but it would be nice to see a little bit more possession instead of just frantic, chaotic moments, which was quite similar to Marcelo Bielsa, which are causing Leeds a lot of individual errors at the minute. And I think that is a cause for a lot of the individual errors. I do think, on the contrary to what I was just saying, the players aren't good enough and we need serious positions to be bolstered. However, a tactical imprint of moving the ball as quickly as possible, 1 touch, 2 touch, and finding your man in compact spaces for me led to, for example, the Brendan Aronson goal, which was poor from Brendan Aronson. He was trying to play a one-touch pass. But when it gets that midfield space, when you've got Declan Rice and Lucas Paqueta breathing down your neck, and you are meant to move through the transition, through the thirds in those central spaces, you need to pop the ball off quickly. If you don't do that, you're going to get caught in possession. So I understood what Brendan was trying to do. The execution just wasn't there. And that will get put down to individual error, and quite rightly so. However, the system doesn't benefit someone to get the ball on the back foot, to take a couple of touches and then spray the ball out wide. That's not really the system. It needs to be moving quickly to be able to move the opposition out of position, and for you then to exploit those areas and those gaps. But I do think there are issues when it comes to individual quality. Of course, we've seen that through the Premier League season, but I do think there is an argument that the system doesn't benefit that as well with how quick it is. I think we've seen a lot of the press being bypassed extremely easily at the minute, and I don't think it's consistent. We get 5 players pressing in a unit, and then we'll just have Leeds dropping off completely when there are phases where Leeds can press and recover that ball in the midfield spaces or in the attacking phases as well. So I don't understand why the press is so bypassed, but it does seem at the minute, especially in the Newcastle game, the Man City game, which is naturally going to happen. But even last night, West Ham were able to play their way through it pretty easily. And then obviously, naturally, what do you get? You get the defence being overloaded. Jamie Carragher was speaking about it when it came to Liverpool, and why Liverpool are conceding so many goals at the minute is because they don't have the defensive, resolute midfield, that unit in front of them that is able to protect that back four. Because when you're getting midfielders just run at your defence, they're completely isolated, and it's very, very difficult to keep Premier League calibre attackers out when they're just isolating defenders. And I think that is what Leeds are facing at the minute. It doesn't feel like we have enough in that midfield space and that forward space, because listen, we defend as a unit to protect that back line, and I think that's what's causing a lot of issues at the minute. There are teams that have come to Ellen Road. We've mentioned West Ham, of course. But you can hark back to Fulham, you can hark back to Bournemouth, even when we went down to Brentford, teams absolutely creating an abundance of chances against Leeds United, and we're making them in phases look like Real Madrid, Brazil. They're able to carve through Leeds so easily. I mean, West Ham, true to form, didn't get many shots on target last night, but they still came to Ellen Road and had 16 shots. You know? Leeds are still vulnerable when we're taking the lead. Even against a team last night, West Ham, who I thought looked extremely poor, Leeds are still not able to manage the game. And I ask you one question. What games are Leeds United supposed to win this season at home? What games do we go into feeling really confident? Because at the minute, I don't feel comfortable at all. I really don't. I don't feel comfortable. And listen, we can only ever compare to Marcelo Bielsa because it's a recent history in the Premier League. But there were games under Bielsa where I'd be confident. You know, your West Broms, your Fulhams, teams in and around us at the time, your Norwiches, maybe a few teams in and around us a little bit higher, maybe your Evertons or whatever. I don't really feel confident going into any game at the minute with Leeds United. I really don't. And that's not a Marsh Bielsa thing, of course it isn't, but I'm just saying in recent history, I have been confident going into certain games. Last night, I wasn't confident. And that's not a cynical, pessimistic, negative view. It's based on trends. It's based on patterns. It's based on evidence. Leeds United can't defend. We cannot defend. Nothing has improved from the previous coach. So if nothing has improved from the previous coach, we are going to be letting in as many goals as we were under the previous coach. And we are going that way this season. It just doesn't seem that Leeds are able to manage games properly. So we are back into that old phase that we were in all those years ago when it came to, well, Leeds have to outscore the opposition. So it feels like at the minute we have to score 2, 3, 4 goals to be able to win the game, because the opposition in the Premier League are so good, as we saw like with Bournemouth. You know, winning the game, we had to score 4 goals at home to beat Bournemouth. Tottenham, we had the lead 3 times, but we couldn't keep them out. We probably had to score 4, 5 goals to win the game, of course. You know, it shouldn't be like this. You should be able to mitigate against opposition problems, you know, when you take the lead. I know it's difficult in the Premier League, but you, of course, look down to individual qualities. But I do feel that the systems at the minute and how Leeds are playing, not having enough possession of the ball, it's very difficult to control games when you're in the lead, for me. If you're consistently giving the ball back to the opposition are going to consistently come forward and consistently cause you problems, especially in the best league in the world. Are we more wide at the minute? I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the 4-3-3, I think we're a little bit more wide, but I think it is a 4-3-3 narrow. As I mentioned before, I think Mark Rocker would really benefit with Leeds going a little bit more wide. But I think Marsh's continuous reference to intensity is a little bit of a problem because he's mentioned it every single press conference. Obviously we saw Crescencio Somerville. There's an argument he should have got sent off last night. I wouldn't have sent him off for that tackle, but there's intensity there. I think we've seen intensity from Mark Rocker, Tyler Adams, Liam Cooper. We've definitely seen that, and I don't understand why there's a constant notion of wanting more intensity. So I think that's a mentality thing, and I understand that. But I feel it's more about quality. I really do. I think it's more about quality on the ball, which comes down to individuals. Of course it does. But I do think there's a way to strengthen your claim in a football game by providing a system that works for these players, whatever that may be. But I thought Harrison was very good last night, probably his best game in a Leeds shirt for a long time. Willie Gnonto was exceptional, a fantastic goal from him. Very, very good. Once again, I said it in the previous game at Newcastle, he's the best player on the pitch. Technically, he's probably top 3 in the Leeds side at the minute, which probably you would look to quality and think to yourself, well, that's because we haven't got an abundance of that. However, Willie Gnonto is really showing why he's a top quality addition. Rodrigo, once again, another fantastic finish. I think that's 10 goals for him at this moment in time. Gabe was mentioned on the debrief that are we seeing that 30 million come back? Not for me as of yet. I still need to see a little bit more consistency, as we've said. Sorry, he was completely anonymous in the Newcastle game, providing anything. Man City is really anonymous as well, and like I've struck that. The iron on Jack Harrison for years and years and years when it comes to consistency. If Rodrigo can do this throughout the whole season, fantastic. But let's just wait and see to see if he can. But so far, so good. But once again, Leeds doing the same thing as Leeds always do, giving 2 cheap, stupid goals away. Obviously, Forest winning last night was not ideal, but I just feel like most teams in the Premier League are 10 times better at being able to manage games than Leeds United. And you could even throw a team like Nottingham Forest in there at the minute. But yeah, I think the changes I would make, I would bring Brendan Aronson out and bring Sinisterra in almost immediately because I think Sinisterra is just that level up. I think Aronson's really struggling at the minute. He's really struggling to acclimatise. I think there needs to be a little bit of work done on him physically as well. I think, it's almost like a little bit of wind blowing against the leaf every time he's on the ball. He seems to be pushed over a little bit. And I was saying, I wonder if his card's been marked a little bit with the Premier League referees, because I'm not saying that they're not always fouls, but he is going down quite frequently and the referees just won't buy that in the Premier League if you're not a top 6 club. So yeah, that's what I would look to do. But I think contextually, I think we need to be a little bit concerned that there's an absolute meltdown at Everton at the minute with Frank Lampard, the owners, Everton just being in the doldrums and thinking that they're going down, yet Leeds United are only 2 points ahead of them. I think we need to just take a step back as a fan base and actually look at the games and think, which games are we supposed to win this season? Because it can't just be against the bottom 3 as we've seen already this season, because we've struggled to win all of those games. So obviously we've got some of those teams to play away. Fulham away is not going to be easy. Bournemouth away is not going to be easy. What games are we supposed to win? Because last night, when you got a team like West Ham, who are appalling at the minute, and they were last night as well, managing to come to Owen Road and score 2 goals, all created by us, it doesn't bode well. It really, really doesn't. But I guess a positive is we've scored more goals than anyone around us, and I'm just hoping that when Verba comes in, he was a captain, obviously, previously. Can he calm things down a bit? Can he be a leader on the pitch? Hopefully so. But initially, everyone, this was going to be a video about Matthias Klick. I was absolutely... I just couldn't believe it when the club didn't announce before the game that he was leaving. Like, why would you not do that? There's probably about 10, 15,000 people who stayed because they didn't know. Nobody knew. I reckon you'd have got a packed out Ellen Road, staying there, clapping Matthias Klick. But obviously that wasn't a thing. I don't really understand that. I felt he deserved a real send-off at the end there. But what a servant he's been for Leeds United. I think it's 200 games now. He's been exceptional. Even in recent weeks, he's been coming on. I've said on here continuously, and I will stick to it, we need to be moving players like Matthias Klick on to get that next step up. But if we are listening to what Jesse's saying, and he feels like we have sufficient backup, this is the whole Pablo Hernandez thing again, isn't it? We never replace Pablo. Are we going to ever replace Matthias Klick? It seems to take Leeds years and years and years because they're skint to be able to replace anyone. And for me, that is just an absolute necessity at the minute. Because what's the point in letting him go? Offer him at least a decent contract for another 12 to 18 months and at least keep him round so he can come on and do bits in games, because we know he still has a little bit of quality. But if that's the level, if Matthias Klick is the level and we're not looking at elevating, if we're not looking at evolving, that's absolutely fine. But at least keep him on then, because there's no point in evolving in that position and just getting rid of someone, because you're not going to get better in that position, are you? You're just going to become lighter. And what are we now relying on Adam Forshaw, who was injured again yesterday? Is that what we're doing? It's just a joke. So I'm hoping the rumblings that are coming out of the club aren't true. But, Jesse Marsh essentially saying after the game that, he feels like he has sufficient backup. But he's a puppet, isn't he, for Orta and Radrizzani, who probably know that a good midfielder, an evolution of Mattis Klic, is going to cost 15 to 20 million. So they're not going to do that. We forget the Verba deal is in massive instalments to Salzburg. The Salzburg press guy not long ago said about a week and a half ago that Salzburg are trying to figure out a way of working Leeds' payment. I mean, what on earth does that mean? Read between the lines there. So, that would be absolutely shocking if we don't. We've heard nothing on a striker yet either. There's absolutely no rumblings. I think the Shea Adams stuff is just general rumour mill stuff that we hear all the time. But they've really got to start pulling the finger out quickly, really, really quickly. Because you've let Mattis Klic go now, fair play. What an inspirational player he's been for Leeds. 200 appearances, a massive character. You've got to replace that. You've got to replace it. And if you don't, we're going to use the N word again. Negligence. Again. Negligence. Naive. They cannot do this again. They really can't. It's baffling. It really is. And I don't understand why we've not set up an almost scheme for the 49ers to take over this January and at least invest a little bit. It doesn't have to be massive, but just invest a little bit so we can keep ticking over. Not just not invest. Invest in one player, obviously contradictory to what I just said, but invest in one player in a position that we don't really know where he plays. Left back, centre back, okay, it's not really an out and out left back, okay, interesting, we're going to change the system, probably not. But not just do that and leave it. You've got to go out and get a midfielder. You've got to go out and get a striker. We've been begging for a striker for about 10 years. Go and do it, Leeds. We cannot take this risk. You can see the squad at the minute, even the game yesterday, there's not enough quality in there. It's going to take us down. And people need to get their heads out of the sand with this club at the minute. Because as much as we're creating chances, as much as, there is a big sort of rallying call for Leeds to, when we start taking our chances, we're going to start moving up the table. If you keep conceding goals like we are conceding goals, there's only one way you're going. It doesn't matter how many goals you're scoring. It really doesn't. Because if you're just going to concede and lose leads constantly, and not win the games you should be winning, but there's literally no point. And if you lose it, like I said, you're drawing those games, you're losing those games, there's no point. You have to be able to manage games. And you manage games with quality. And that starts in the midfield. Midfield battles win games. Mattis Klic used to do that in the Championship alongside Pablo Hernandez. And Calvin Phillips. It has to be better. It really does. And even if we are going to outscore oppositions, to win games, and we're not going to be defensively resolute or whatever it is, we need to score even more goals. So we need a striker in. And you can control games from the front as well. Retrieving the ball into chest, moving Leeds up the pitch, winning free kicks. That's how you do that from the front as well. You can be a defender from the front as well, as you see with Shea Adams consistently. Anyway, we're going to leave it there, guys. It's been a bit of a rant, been a bit of a discussion. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree with what I've said? Guys, have a